Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Success is a Choice podcasting network. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler, and we appreciate you joining us on YouTube, Rumble, LinkedIn, Facebook. Maybe you're listening to this on the Success is a Choice audio podcast on all your favorite audio platforms. Hey, we got a great guest for you today. Worldwide media sensation. You know him, you love him. Media personality, Jake Crain, the host of the nationally weekday show, Crain Company. Jake, welcome to the show.
Jamy, man, I'm excited to be here. A lot of respect for what you do, and excited to chop it up with you for a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, you were a former football coach who's now turned, you got this national show every morning. You chop it up, talk sports. How did you get from coach to this media personality?
Well, number one, thank you for the kind words. You know, I still think I'm in a coma. Like I'm waiting to wait. Somebody like wake me up and be like, yeah, man, no, that semi hit you. It's been 7 years. The Kings are good now. The Knicks are good now. But no, it's been unbelievable. It's one of those things. I'm a firm believer in timing. I think everybody is. Timing and communication will get you a long way. And I came from a sports family. My father was an All-American at Auburn. Played in the NFL for a bit, coached for a long time. My mom was a junior Olympic swimmer, big sports fan. So we grew up kind of sports is what we did. I played, ended up playing in college. When I got done playing, decided I want to get into coaching. Surprise, surprise, kind of, following the family crest, and did that, man, for 9.5 years. Was very, very fortunate. Coached Division I for 6.5 years. And when the pandemic hit, I was up in Montana coaching and actually interviewing for the defensive coordinator job up there. And they sent us all home. And, being in the coaching world, you don't get a lot of off time. So when you get a chance to go see your family, even though it was turbulent times, went back and had all my guys signed. It was the first year of the early signing period in recruiting, and got a $50 mic. And we didn't know when we were going to go back, and just started doing it. And man, it's just taken off from there, and I'm just very fortunate, and I think timing had a lot to do with it. So it's a crazy story. I've had a lot of people that stuck by me and gave me a chance, and it's been a lot of hard work, but that's what it takes. And just couldn't be more excited to be with where we're at with the Daily Wire, and be in the sports show there, and being able to work with the people we work with and say what we want to say in a time and place in media where a lot of people say what they're told to say, and we've just totally forgotten common sense.
Yeah, well, I'm kicking myself. You guys signed with the Daily Wire. Just their offer came in just above our bid. We weren't able to put together the package that was as attractive as the Daily Wire, to come on board Success is a Choice podcast network. But from $50 mic to Daily Wire, how has your approach? Has your approach changed at all from back when you were doing mainly SEC sports to what you're doing now? Has your approach changed? Has your lifestyle changed? How has your life just in general changed?
Yeah, just to start off, it was hard to turn you down, Jamie. It was a great offer. It's a wonderful place. I had hats on the table, had to decide, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And, no love lost, though. It's nothing but respect. Well, from a lifestyle standpoint, my lifestyle's changed. I mean, I'm getting married in less than a month, and it obviously has nothing to do with the show. That's changed my lifestyle a lot, but my mindset hasn't changed. And I think that's the most important thing. I feel like I was born in a generation, and I'm a millennial, that, you have people that work hard, and then you hear the gripe of there's a lot of people that don't work hard, that this is the generation of laziness or wanting other people to do things. And, as I've always thought, well, if that's the case, then that may be better for me because I'll outwork anybody. And I surround myself with people that want to work hard, people that you say want to win, but how you win is the process by which you get to the final result, which you believe is a win. And so as far as attacking it, grinding, I'm treating it just like I still have a $50 mic and I'm doing it out of a back room, not knowing what's going on. Because I feel like the minute you come up for air, or the minute where you take a deep breath and relax, is the minute you're already losing. Because I mean, it's a dog eat dog world in this business like it is in every other one. But I've found that, if you put hard work with being yourself, and I always say what I think, that's why I'm able to defend, whether that's arguing, whether that's a counterpoint, whether that's a debate on sports, or when we have certain political things that touch sports like NIL and stuff like that, because I truly believe what I'm saying. Some other places, they tell you what to say and you can only argue that up to a point. So that's why I feel like we've had success, is because we're just like everybody else out there. We want to work hard and do the best that we can to provide for our families and say what we believe. And so in that stance, no, whether I'm talking about Auburn or Alabama or the Knicks or the Lakers, it doesn't matter.
I really enjoy your show, except you do talk way too much hockey.
Which, well, I will say this. I'm from Auburn, Alabama. I'm not going to kid around. We didn't grow up here, every Stanley Cup getting the family together and going nuts. Hockey wasn't offered at my high school. There wasn't enough ice. The only ice was in the cafeteria. So when I got into it probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it's amazing if you've ever been to an NHL game, how much fun they are. Just the physicality, how fast they play, the speed of the game, the tempo and the pace. But I've kind of gotten into it, man. Like I'm not Barry Melrose yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I tell you what, the Canes, those are my guys. We need to figure it out. We can't be losing to the Islanders at home though. Goodness gracious.
Well, you now live in Nashville. Have you become a Nashville NHL fan?
Yeah, look, I'm a Preds fan. Kind of like me and you were talking about earlier. I had this whole thing on the show. I went through different teams, had my official visits, really got to know the community and decided, look, I'm not leaving home. I'm staying home. And it's great, man. I've been to 3 or 4 of them, and Smashville, man, it's where it's at.
Yeah, growing up, I grew up in Michigan when the Detroit Red Wings were actually good, and I enjoyed hockey, especially playoff hockey. Playoff hockey is, even if you're not a fan, if you start watching, especially like the third period of playoff hockey, it's pretty exciting.
Well, I tell people, look, just like anything, once you understand the rules, like you can really get into it, because you have to know what's going on. You can't just look at the puck. This isn't a Disney movie. You don't just follow the bouncing balls. But once you understand, hey, that's offsides, the way the line changes work, understanding, how guys set up plays and kind of the special teams of hockey, it's a lot of fun to get into.
Well, we had on a little while ago, we had on the former president of Levi Strauss, Jennifer Say, who was a former national champion in gymnastics. And we talked gymnastics for about half of the show, which is more gymnastics than I've ever talked in my life. So
yeah, you don't have to go down that one.
So we need to make a hard pivot off of hockey, because I don't want to go down this road either of talking about hockey way too much as a basketball guy. But so you jumped in with the Daily Wire. When people think of the Daily Wire, they think of that humongous organization, media conglomerate that is the Daily Wire. Most people don't think sports. How did you get hooked up with them? And what is it like? Most people would probably think, all right, a sports show, all you're talking about is politics all day long with your sports show.
Yeah, no, it's funny, man. Life's interesting. So when I got moved to Atlanta and went on video with some investors when I decided to get out of coaching. So they moved me to Atlanta, we go on video, and then Colin Cowherd reaches out to us. And says, hey, do you want to be on the Volume Sports Network? It's a podcast network he has. Draymond Green's on there, other guys as well. And he was like, you can be the college football, really SEC focused show. So we were like, great, 6-month contract. We do the 6 months, knock it out of the park. It's fantastic. Doing the live show with the chat and stuff like that. And man, I'm sitting there at lunch. We're in the middle of renegotiating the contract because they wanted to sign us for longer. And I get a DM from Ben Shapiro on Twitter. and me and him just start going back and forth and exchanging pleasantries. And it's kind of like if you just got a DM from LeBron and he's like, hey man, like regardless if you like him or hate him, I think we can agree LeBron's a pretty good basketball player. Be like, hey man, like you're pretty good at basketball. That's like how it was. So that's how it started, and we ended up deciding to come up here because look, the people at the Volume were great. They were fantastic. It wasn't anything they did, but we felt like with the Daily Wire's vision and them wanting to continue to branch out and be able to hit all spheres of media and do it the way that it's supposed to be done, where they hire people they believe, will say what they think, and that's what we do. And I like being the only sports show on the Daily Wire. I don't like being one of 12 sports shows. Not that I don't think we do well. We already proved that we could do well in that arena. But we feel like the Daily Wire is an absolute beacon of the future of media with the way it's going. And we would love to be the sports wing of that. And I'm not here trying to badmouth the other network, but let's be honest, man. I mean, there's only one side of everything that gets pushed on sports fans who really just want to talk about sports. And yeah, we're at the Daily Wire, right? And the Daily Wire talks politics. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that out. But we're not going out there saying, oh, man, let's go talk about, what's going on at the southern border, or let's go talk about, women's reproductive rights. No, here's when we talk about politics. This is what we talk about. When men are playing women's sports, okay, and NIL and stuff like that, we're not going on here trying to change the way you think about foreign policy. We may want to change the way you think about who drafted who. So it's kind of a ode to the old days of sports talk, where when politics touches it, you talk about it. You say what you really think, and you approach it from a commonsensical type way. And that's what we have. And I feel like that's just another reason that people have kind of flocked to it, is because it reminds them of the old days of, hey man, if I want to hear about sports, I'm going to turn into a sports show. And there just happens to be one on the Daily Wire.
Which is refreshing for me because I'm like everybody else. I click on ESPN.com when I need to know about sports. I do that. I watch ESPN, probably like you, grew up watching SportsCenter all the time, but I want to watch sports. If I want to watch politics, I'll turn on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. I don't want my sports shows or my sports podcast to be finding reasons to talk about politics and everything.
That's it. Right there.
And you guys might address some issues, but it's like when it smacks you in the face, it's like unavoidable, as opposed to, hey, we have these 5 sports stories. How can we get a political bent or a political lean with these 5 sports stories? It's like, no, just tell me about what happened in the game.
Yes, if it's so relevant, if it's something that's changing a sport or that is super relevant in the sports world, then yes, I feel like it'd be a disservice to our audience not to talk about it. But like you said, it's treating it like a jump instead of an obstacle. Oh, I can use this political thing to really, really stir people up. Or when they talk about, this league is terrible against this group of people, when the numbers don't say that. Like we'll call it out. I feel like we're one of the few that do, but we'd much rather talk about the game. I'd much rather talk about how Bama's offensive line looks this year and what they're doing taking a transfer quarterback this late in the game. That's what I want to talk about.
Well, we have a mutual friend in Riley Gaines. You had her on the show. We had her on the show.
Yes.
I think, I'm not sure if it was you guys or us, but she came on our show soon after she came on yours. She had maybe 25, 30,000 followers on Twitter. Now she has over 500,000. So I don't know if it was you guys that did that or us.
Probably.
I'm sure it was one of us.
Yeah. Or team effort.
Maybe a team effort to put her over the edge of the 500,000. But let's talk about that, because that's the one political thing that you had mentioned earlier about maybe that slaps you in the face. That's something that's really important to you guys. But Riley Gaines' a story, and she lives there in Nashville as well.
Yeah. This is probably the prime example of one that slaps you in the face very hard, because it affects all of us. And it's not just people that play sports, and I'll make that make sense. But this is something where this isn't a reach. I don't care who you voted for. But I don't care. I'm not going to judge you as a great person or a horrible person off of a voting decision. But I think we can all, not just in the sports world, but just in the real rational world of thinking, understand that men don't need to play in women's sports. I think this is an area where you talk about bipartisanship, and Riley Gaines is really the figure of the common sense movement of just having everybody look around and say, what are we doing? We know that men and women are different. It's obvious. It's why you have the WNBA and the NBA. It's why you don't have, outside of Fallon Fox, men fighting women in UFC, because that's a very inherent true thing. 2 + 2 is 4. Men should not compete against women. And I'm not talking about 3 to 5 year olds on the soccer field. I'm not talking about playing chess or Monopoly or bingo or heck, even throwing darts. I'm talking about the obvious advantages that men have over women. And Riley, with what she's been through, speaking out against this, having gone through this herself with Leah Thomas, which is a totally ridiculous situation. And at some point, we know how competitive we are as a country. I get it. I'm a sports person. You want your side to win. You will always think your side is right. But this is one where we need to put our swords down and come together, because what it's going to lead to is not just men and women's sports, but now you have men being able to go in places where they don't with women. I'm getting married here on May 20th. My fiance is one of the most important people in my life. She's one of the most beautiful people in my life. And when I decided to marry her and be with her, I became, and this is the way we think, somewhat her protector. And it is opening up the door, because I know what rational men think about this whole situation. And I want to help stop this before it gets any further. And you've seen that there's a ton of people in government on both sides that don't believe in this. This is something where we all have to stand up against, because at the end of the day, we have to protect women and girls. And that's just the right thing to do. And I couldn't be more proud to be associated with Riley and what she means to that movement. And she's not afraid, because this craziness has to stop. I don't care who you love or what you dress up like, but this craziness has to stop.
Yeah, the competitive part, there needs to be some strong conversations about that. And even probably more so than that, it's the people with male body parts being in a female locker room, which is one of the parts to Riley's story there.
Jamy, I mean, there's a few things in that are more important than myself, and that's my family and my faith. And that's just, at the end of the day, man, I mean, it's dangerous. It's dangerous, because bad things will happen. Very bad things will happen.
Absolutely. Well, let's get off politics a little bit, but you mentioned NIL. I can't think of NIL or even college football without thinking of a friend of the show here, Deion Sanders, Primetime, Coach Prime. We're big fans of his, but even if you're not a big fan of his, you cannot ignore the fact that he as a coach is similar to him as a player. He's going to bring a lot of attention and get things done. Thoughts about maybe not just him, but the landscape of college football, NILs, transfer portal, maybe stuff that he's doing, because you can't escape what he's doing with NIL, with transfer portals.
Well, you notice there's kind of a new wave that's taken over in coaching. You look at what social media has done, guys like Lane Kiffin using it to their advantage. It's always been a huge PR situation, but now it's just been like thrown into the future. And Deion Sanders is a great coach to have in this current climate with Instagram and the way recruiting is now, and NIL, and people wanting to help him out and help out Colorado. But when you look at it from a 30,000 foot view, I think we have to talk about it in separate buckets, but you released it all at the same time with transfer portal. And not only that, conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, all at the same time with really no guardrails. So you're building the parachute on the way down. Now people want to complain, oh, it's out of control. Well, you can't just open up the door and let Frankenstein walk out in the village before he's ready and then get upset when he's ripping villagers apart and setting stuff on fire. I don't understand that line of thinking. But when it comes to NIL, I'm not a hypocrite. All right, I'm not going to sit here and say that people should not be paid for their name, image, and likeness when I go on a show every day hoping people will watch it and us get sponsors who are paying for my name, image, and likeness. So I'm not a hypocrite. But where I think they messed up is I thought NIL was, if Dr. Pepper wants to do something with Bryce Young, then Dr. Pepper's people contacts Bryce Young's people and they do a deal. But just like any other lucrative business in the history of the world, there has to be a middleman. And who is that middleman? It is the collectives. That's the problem. You have people shoveling money into a pot and saying, go disperse this, instead of saying, you know what? We're M&Ms, and we want to have Trevor Lawrence sponsor M&Ms when he's at Clemson. So let me reach out to Trevor Lawrence's people, who by NCAA mandate, you are now allowed to have. We've totally muddied the water there. When it comes to the transfer portal, I have no problem if players want to leave. I feel like they should be able to leave and go where they want outside of the conference that they are in. I do not like letting players transfer not only within the same conference, but within the same division without paying a penalty. You're going to get even more tampering because you play against each other and you know the coaches who recruited those players. So now the tampering will happen with the coaches as well with freedom to transfer. If you want to go to LSU to Utah, knock yourself out, buddy. From Hawaii to FAU, get on a plane and fly all the way there, my friend. But unless the head coach is fired, leaves to take another job or get out of coaching, then I feel like you should be able to have that 1 year to transfer because the head coach left. But outside of that, they didn't put guardrails on it. And now you're letting guys stay in college for 9 years because of COVID. So you got what I call the Van Wilder effect when you have all these players coming back and not enough scholarships to sign the new players coming out of high school.
So this is what a lot of people get when they watch your show. Your show, all the audio podcasting feeds, but it's also on the Daily Wire, YouTube live every morning, 7:30 Eastern time, 6:30 Central time. So check it out while you're driving. What will they get watching your show? They just got a piece of it, but watching your show, listening to your show that maybe they don't get somewhere else other than maybe not the incessant politics of things.
Well, we don't hate you because of what you believe. Number one, that's a good start. I think the second thing that you'll notice is a little bit of everything. You know, we do a live show, but I feel like our strength is our versatility. There's three of us. It's me, Blaine, and Cone. We all played. Blaine coached. We know how it goes. But what I want you to feel like is that you just rolled up with a couple of buddies and y'all are talking about sports. You just happen to have buddies that did sports for a living. And you're able to get inside information, and some of it's funny. I mean, we have Flaming Dragon Fridays where we can't refer to Blaine by his name. We have to refer to him as Flaming Dragon. We interact with our audience in chat, and we have live call-ins 3 days a week. So we hit all the main topics, but I think what you'll get is versatility. Some days you'll laugh, and you won't always agree with us. And guess what? That's great. We want that. We love going back and forth with people that call into the show or may disagree with us. Dissent moves us forward. I don't want you to watch us for an hour and a half and be like, he's right, he's right, he's right. Now, in reality, I probably am pretty close. No, I'm kidding. But I want it to be an experience for you that you have to have as part of your routine. And I feel like that's kind of our niche. And it's kind of an old school way of broadcasting it, with a new school kind of thinking at a sports bar kind of situation.
How often a day do people reach out to you or mistake David Cone for being the former Major League Baseball player?
And it's hilarious. Well, it's funny. Everybody says he looks like Elon Musk. So he actually gets that more than we call him the Dollar General version of Elon Musk. He actually looks like everybody mixed together. If you look at David, like he looks like Matt Ryan to me. Half the time I walk in the studio, I'm expecting him to catch, be coming out of a dig and catch the ball. But he all the time. We're actually going to get David Cone on. They talked on Twitter yesterday, the other day officially, and it's one of the top 3 most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. But without a doubt, all the time, yes.
Yeah. Now, for those of you that don't know, David Cone played quarterback a little bit at Michigan. He was there. He was a holdover from the Lloyd Carr era.
The real number 12 at Michigan. His numbers are better than Brady's. Look it up.
He was recruited for Lloyd Carr's system. Big 6'7", could chuck the ball, and then Rich Rod comes in with the the run option and totally out of place there.
Well, it's funny. Some people think I'm short. I'm 6'2" and a quarter. Like Cone said, because I was standing next to Cone. My brother's 6'4" and a quarter. So I'll stand next to Blaine and Cone, look like Muggsy Bogues, but I'm a full-grown adult male. I mean, I'm almost to the ability to make the G League as a guard, 6'2" and a quarter. Right? You know the rules, Jamie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that David Cone is going to be coming on, so you'll have a double shock power there with David Cone in that episode. Are there some episodes that stand out in your mind? Interesting guests that you've had. I know you have guests all over, and you don't want to offend anybody by leaving them out, but some that maybe stand out that someone might not think about.
Since I started this, I'm only really like 2 3/4 years into this, but we've had, I feel like, a million guests. Having Feinbaum on early was an accomplishment for me just because of who he was and how quickly I had gotten in the game and the way that it worked. What we've had, man, everybody from ESPN people to coaches. I mean, having, Bruce Pearl and all these coaches on is fantastic. One that we did when it was the J-Boy show before he came to the Daily Wire. And look, we've had Ben Shapiro, fantastic, Jim Jordan, all these guys. But we had Bobby Jones' grandson on during Masters Week. And he brought in some of Bobby Jones' old clubs and was just telling us just stories about how back in the day, you know, they used to, if you were an amateur, you got paid. The pros really didn't make that much money. And just telling stories about Bobby Jones and how they, you know, created the courses and just how it went back then. I was just absolutely floored because I like golf. I really enjoy golf, but really kind of learning it from one of the absolute godfathers of the sport, looking at those old clubs, Calamity Jane and things like that was fascinating for me.
Well, you know, the Barstool Sports guys, pardon my take guys, they had Dan Marino leave an interview once. It was so bad. And they talk about some of their other interviews. Have you had an interview that you would like to admit that was absolutely terrible? Maybe on the guest part, you know, would you like to throw somebody under the bus or at least talk about yourself, how bad you were?
Man, to be honest with you, I don't know. I think it's just my personality. Like, I'm not very like starstruck or like, you know, awkward or nervous. It's, you know, it's great and it's not great sometimes. But man, not on air. I tell you what, Tim Brando is a great friend of the show. Love Timmy B. Me and Timmy B got into it one time a couple years ago about Cincinnati because he thought that Cincinnati could beat Bama. This is like during the regular season. I was like, Timmy B, man, I promise you, dog. Like, there's no way that's going to happen. Anyway, it got heated. We're both really competitive. But we're great. It ended up being something that brought us closer together. But I will say this. Ryan Leaf one time asked him to come on the show, got the time, everything like this. I've never had this problem with another guest ever. Sent him the email, link, all that stuff. Supposed to have him on. Doesn't come on. I'm like, all right, something must have happened. All of a sudden he goes on Twitter and he's like, oh, this is so unprofessional by, you know, Jake Crain at Crain Company. And I'm like, what's going on? So I just screenshotted the emails. Man, you never looked at your email. You didn't check your emails. Like that's on me. Like that's my fault. And it wasn't like it was through a third party or anything like that. But I was getting screamed at by Ryan Leaf. I felt like that reporter in the locker room that one time. But other than that, man, it's been pretty smooth sailing.
Well, he's at Jake Crain _. Have you checked into maybe getting into this century and doing away with the underscore?
Look, man, well, you know, when I changed it, they took away my verification when I came with the Daily Wire. Like trying to get that back was, you know, like trying to talk your way off Shutter Island. It's just really not going to happen. Somehow I ended up, you know, convincing Mark Ruffalo that I was fine and they gave it back. But I think it was taken. Like when I did it, I think it was taken. I think somebody had taken it. So I had to throw the underscore there. Look, it's ugly. I'm not going to lie. It's like me with the mustache. It just doesn't look good. It just doesn't work. But maybe, I don't know. I'll send a message to Elon and see if he cares at all.
Well, you know, if he's listening right now, or, you know, I've heard that there are people who have bought Teslas that listen to this. And so maybe they can relay that message for you. But yeah, it's actually Jake Crain I looked it up and it's someone that hasn't tweeted since like 2012, but it's an Auburn fan.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if I made that. I'm trying to remember if I was even on Twitter in 2012. I don't know. Who knows? But I do know when they looked it up, it wasn't there. So I had to settle for this dashing underscore at the end.
Well, you mentioned that you were an athlete growing up. You were a coach. Were there athletes or coaches that you absolutely looked up to or that you wanted to be like when you were young?
Oh, yeah. You know,
or even now, people that you still want to be, you know, when you go out in the back and shoot hoops. I'm from Auburn. I love Saban, the way he handles his business, just because he's such a structural mastermind when it comes to the roster and being malleable when he's gotten to the top. But that's an easy one. You know, I like Josh Heupel. I like the system that he runs. I like his aggressiveness. When you look at the league, I mean, who doesn't want to be Andy Reid, just eating cookies and drinking milk and coming up with great formations and ways to get Patrick Mahomes another Super Bowl ring? But yeah, there's a lot of them, man. But I would say my father was obviously the biggest influence that I had. And he played in the NFL for a little bit, right?
Yeah, played for the Packers and the Oilers.
What position did he play?
Middle linebacker. He was 6'2", about 240 pounds. Let's just say my room stayed clean.
Yeah, middle linebackers. Those guys bring it.
Yeah, from Sylacauga, Alabama. You know, it wasn't really a great Gatsby situation growing up, so he had to get it, and buddy, he did.
All right. So we'll get you out on this last question. You're king for the day. You're in charge.
Mm.
What would you like to change or see different in sports?
Man, the one thing I would change is taking away the political narratives that have pushed so many professional leagues into a very bad situation, like we've seen with the NBA, like we saw during a certain time during the NFL. And I'm not saying that I would want it to be all taken out, where you're looking at sports figures standing up for men and women's sports, but like we need to support sports fans. We need to remember that sports is one of the last havens that we have, where it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican or independent. When our team does good, we celebrate together. If we're at a game and sitting next to each other and our team scores a touchdown, I'm going to turn around and high five you. I don't care if you voted for Joe Biden, the Pope, or Donald Trump. So I think we need to get out using sports as a conduit to push political narratives that we all know, the sick game that is politics. So if I was king for a day, I'd do that, and then see if I could be king for another day.
Get one more wish when you got the 3 wishes.
Yeah,
for
for sure. I become commissioner of all sports. That's the second wish.
Well, I was asked that once, and I said I would make basketball assists like hockey assists. In fact, I would actually go further. I would say and you can tell I was a point guard.
Yeah. So no, I know what you're going to say. If you dribble the ball up the court, it's an assist.
If you pass the ball to anybody and they score. So if you inbound the ball to LeBron and he dribbles all the way up the court and he scores, you got the assist as an inbounder.
I don't mind that one either. I hate the one dribble rule.
I just think it would take number one, it would pad my stats as a point guard much more. But number two, it would take all the controversy out. Was that an assist or not?
Look, I'm with it. I'd also say that you can't have any more rules that hurt the defense. I'm sick of it in every sport. I'm a defensive guy. Every sport, every rule helps the offense, except the new college football clock rule that the clock runs after a first down. But that's just one. We need more. What's targeting? Why does the offense never get called for it?
Well, I lied. I said that was the last question, but it's related to that question, being king for the day. Do you like the way the college football playoffs is going, since you're a big college football fan? Do you like that? What changes would you make to the college football playoff scene?
Okay, I like the college football playoff. I thought the perfect number was 8, because we know it's a slippery slope. Now we've gone from 4 to 12. They're not going to stop at 12. Okay, I feel like if we kept it at 8, where you had the automatic, if you win your conference championship game in a Power 5 conference, you are in, and then you have 2 other spots that are up for any of the teams that qualify underneath. So last year it would have been like Bama or one other team. And then you have another top 25 poll for the group of 5. And whoever finishes number 1 in the group of 5 poll gets that 8th spot. That's what I thought would be perfect, but they pushed it to 12. I do think it will help with parity. I really believe that, because it gives more people an opportunity to play on the big stage, which helps recruiting because it helps TV revenue. So I do think eventually it will help parity.
Well, I think it's like anything else. If you don't know your why, or if you don't know where you're trying to get to, you're not really sure how to go there. And what I'm saying with that is, I'm not sure that the NCAA basketball tournament is to crown the best team. I think it's more of a tournament. They want to crown a tournament champion.
Yeah.
Football to me has always been, we want to figure out who the best team is. And the more you dilute a playoff, the more you get away from that model. Because in basketball, there's so many teams that could win a tournament. In football, there's only a few that can win a national title.
There is. And look, it's like fixing an economy. You don't flip a switch and all of a sudden there's parity all over the Power 5 level in Division I. Here's what I say, and this is an interesting argument for me, because the way I look at it is, I actually think the way the NCAA tournament does it and the college football playoff is the best way. I feel like single elimination is the best way, because who ends up winning? If a series, like how did the Heat beat the Bucks then? Like if people think that series truly crowns the best team, and I understand the argument, and I'm not saying it's illogical, but I think what crowns the best team is the team that can win the most ways. So when you get into that tournament setting and you have to play multiple games against different teams, you may have games where you don't shoot good. You may have games where your matchups didn't turn out the way you thought, and you have to win a game with maybe defense and rebounding or hitting free throws. That's why what Connecticut did to me, Connecticut is the best team in the country, and they beat the heck out of everybody, and they really did it with defense and offense. But they could win games in multiple ways. They could win a rock fight. They could win a shootout. They could win a fast-paced game. They could win a slow-paced game. So I like single elimination because you also find out who's really about it when going home's right out the window. But great news is the NCAA is on their way out. They're getting weaker every day. You're going to end up seeing in college football a breakaway from the NCAA. They'll still be, a little bit of a connection there just because of the olden days. But Greg Sankey will be the new commissioner of football. We'll have super conferences. They'll have their own rules committee, and they'll handle NIL the way they're going to handle it. And it's going to be spurred by the SEC and the Big Ten. And eventually you're going to have two conferences, ESPN and Fox, and they will play.
Well, he's Jake Crain. You can listen to him live every morning at 7:30 Eastern on YouTube, on thedailywire.com or dailywire.com. But check out his podcast, check his stuff out, Crain Company. Follow him on Twitter at Jake Crain _. Also, while you're checking out stuff, go ahead, leave a little 5-star review if you'd be so kind. Smash that like button, or just tappy tap if you don't want to break your screen. Even if you don't like me, even if you don't like my show, you like Jake, leave something good about Jake. That Jake is the man. So until next time, appreciate everybody checking out this show. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?